Right, it's 6:30. We have a quorum. Let's go ahead and get started. Do we have any corrections to the minutes?
Maybe it would be good to do some quick introductions, if you don't mind,
Okay, that works too.
since we have a new member present. Alderperson Madden, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Kim Madden. I am the City Council representative for District 2. I am taking this meeting in my sound booth, so if you see a picture of an ear behind me, that's why. I am a hearing instrument specialist by trade and a bicyclist for fun. I'd like to ride around the city. I take public transportation. My kids walk everywhere. Pedestrian, bike, and transit is important to me. Personally, I have a daughter who will probably never be able to drive, and so this is kind of personal for me. I want to make sure that we are providing not only her, but everyone coming up around her age group and around the community with access to pedestrian safety, to bicycle lanes, and to public transit to get around, not just for work, but also for, pleasure and for social engagement.
Thank you. Steve Small, why don't you go ahead? Why don't we just go ahead, Steve? Why don't you a brief word about yourself?
I'm Steve Small. I'm the representative from the Commission on Aging.
Thea?
I'm Thea Guerin. I'm a citizen. I live in Middleton, Wisconsin, and my day job is I'm a researcher at the Urban Institute.
Brad?
Hey, I'm another citizen representative. I'm a video producer in my free time. And I'm in Misty Valley.
Okay. Kirsten?
I'm a citizen and primarily get around through bike, walking, and transit, and have done a lot of work with the Wisconsin Bike Fed in the past.
Or can I say more? I'm feeling like I didn't contribute enough.
Your contribution was on the small side.
Yeah, I'm retired now, but I was a developmental and community psychologist and professor at UW. I am a biker and a hiker, and I live near Pheasant Branch, so I'm out on the trails a lot as well, given that I'm retired. So, okay.
Thank you. Tad, why don't you?
Yeah, I'm Tad Dockery. I'm a citizen and I've been car-free since 2018. So I do have a Zipcar membership, but I rarely need it. I get around almost exclusively by walking, and then biking and transit are my next modes.
Okay. And then Kim knows me, and you all know me. I will simply add that what you may not know is I'm going to be joining the ranks of Steve Small, and I've announced my retirement. So I will be leaving city employment in about a month. And Scott Heacock is new to our planning team. He joined the city April 7th, I think it was. And Scott, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, nice to meet all of you. Like Mark said, my name is Scott Heacock. I'm the new placemaking planner here in Middleton. Really excited to be working with all of you and glad that I get to overlap a little bit of time with the great Mark Opitz. And we're going to try to download as much of that institutional knowledge as we can through the active transportation plan, which we'll talk about later in the agenda. But excited to get to all of you, get to know all of you a little bit better for the course of the next couple months here.
Thanks, Scott. And we had someone else join us, and I don't recognize the name. Iris, would you like to introduce yourself? You don't need to if you're not a committee member, but you're welcome to.
Hi, I'm not a committee member. I just want to listen in and see what the plans are.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Tad, I'll turn it back to you.
All right. Back to the minutes. Do we have any corrections or to our minutes?
Here they are. You can all see the screen, right? Or you see the minutes?
Any questions? All right, hearing no corrections to the minutes, they stand as read. Item number 1, the 5-year street improvement plan. Mark?
Hey, yeah, thanks. So this is coming to you by way of the Public Works Committee, which is an annual process that we do. Is the Public Works Committee proposes a list of streets. They prioritize streets on a 5-year plan, and that then gets routed to this committee and the Plan Commission for input before it goes to the Finance Committee and Council. So in your packet is the memo from from Sean Osrud, our engineering technician who oversees this program every year. And basically, this is a good opportunity for the committee to be aware of what's being proposed. And if you have any comments regarding upcoming projects or things that you think might be of particular, should be of particular interest or attention as planning for those projects goes forward, this is a good time to comment on them. I will add that, as Scott alluded, we are in the process of preparing an active transportation plan, which we'll discuss later. But with that combined with our complete streets policy, will ideally inform within a more automated fashion the types of improvements we should make as we reconstruct streets so that it happens more automatically as opposed to sort of an ad hoc approach that we've been doing over the last few years, over many years, until we've adopted the complete streets plan and now the active transportation plan that's underway. So in the future, there should be less, hopefully that will be more built into our culture as a city, with our staff and contractors to be more sensitive to the needs of all roadway users as part of street reconstruction projects.
Brad?
Can I ask why the High Road reconstruction was moved back again? I know that stretch is rough to ride when with construction traffic coming through. And I know all of us who drive on it constantly were hoping that it would be done sooner.
I don't know the specific answer. Maybe it's possible that Alder Madden may know since she's a member of Public Works Committee, but I can wing it if she doesn't have an answer. Kim, do you happen to know the answer? Otherwise, I can.
No, I do. So High Road got moved up basically because of the construction. We're still waiting on that to be kind of more complete before we go ahead and resurface the streets and add sidewalks. So there's that part of it. I know the other parts that moved, I want to say are, so I'm just trying to scroll through here, pardon me. The only real difference between the plan in 2024 and the plan in 2025 here. Give me a minute.
And when she says construction, she's referring to the adjacent land use, Red Tail Ridge.
Correct.
And also the Ziegler Farm, which is going to be called Pheasant Crossing, is going to get underway this next year. I mean, this year, I should say. So I think what she's saying is that because vehicles are beating up the road so much, it doesn't, I think the concern, that and just coordination with all the traffic is probably what prompted the delay for a year.
With the construction of Pheasant Crossing, aren't they starting up at Graber Road, so they won't be using High?
That's a good point, Brad. But there will still be utility work. Well, I can't comment on how that directly interacts with High Road, but that's a very good, valid observation. So I think,
I'm being selfish here too. This is I want the rotor done for me.
right.
I know lots of things are going on in the city, so I just was because I thought Alder Hanairo had managed to move it up. So, but we're good. Thank you.
These things do get moved around, as is already noted. A lot of this has to do with cost estimates and how much projects are anticipated and putting them into manageable buckets, not just because of budget constraints, but also geographic and you know, like for instance, Boulder Lane, Columbus, Mayflower, those are all streets that are in the same neighborhood. So it makes sense to mobilize in one area. So so there's the geographic interest and you know, for efficiency, but then budgetary constraints too. So there's a variety of reasons why these things do move around. Um, High Road, it sounds like, was specifically because of the adjacent construction. So if you don't have any comments specifically on the ped bike facilities, then that's perfectly fine. Like I said, we'll have opportunity through the design process to working with staff to make sure that all of our streets are designed in compliance with our complete streets policy. Scott, that's something you can help keep an eye on going forward. Okay.
Any further comments? All right, moving on to item number 2, policy development, green colored pavement. Mark.
So I thought it would be good to bring this back to the committee. This is obviously something we've talked about before back in January. It's just the same memo that I had in January, but what I introduced this time was the feedback from the Public Works Director at the time, Sean Stowski. Sean himself retired last week. So it was his last Friday. Last Friday was his last day in the office. He will be missed tremendously. And we have a new Public Works Director named Ben John. And you'll probably have an opportunity to meet him at some point in the future. And then we also have a new city engineer named Luke. That's terrible. Luke.
Middleton.
Thank you, Melitic. Thank you. I just couldn't remember his name. I knew it was with him. And he's also a really delightful person to have on staff. So I think we're going to be served really well with the new team that's in Public Works. So that's why this memo is from Sean, because he wrote it. Basically, what it says is what we've known before, which is that the MUTCD, the Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices, still does not explicitly allow green pavement markings where for the use with bike paths, which is what we've seen Madison do. They specifically say if you do have it for a path that it needs and it crosses a street, then you have to have a separate alignment between the bicycle route and the pedestrian route. And oftentimes, due to space constraints, that's not possible. So what we've seen in Madison is, and this is an example of how it's permissible for bike lanes. It's specifically MUTCD says it's suitable for bike lanes like this, but not for shared use path crossings, which I find inordinately frustrating because this type of facility here is a bicyclist is going with traffic in the same direction. And so in my view, this isn't even I mean, this is great that this feature exists and is available, and I think it's helpful, but it's the two-way traffic on a bike path where people are biking on one side of the street in opposite traffic that I think it's especially important to highlight. So that's why I've been on this kick for a while, as many of you have been too. So I was tasked at the Public Works Committee meeting in end of March to see if Fitchburg and Madison have adopted any policies in the meantime. I've heard back from both that they have not. But they are both proceeding with path and still with the use of green pavement markings as we've been discussing. So the Madison Pedestrian Bicycle Facility Administrator essentially said to me in his email that, sometimes it's best just not to ask ask for, sometimes it's best just not to officially have something in writing saying no. So it's a little frustrating. The consultant who worked on the design for the fish hatchery, the bike path along Fish Hatchery Road, wrote back to me just a short while ago and said that, and also added that it's not MUTCD compliant, but acknowledged that the city went ahead with it. So what I'm proposing, the committee previously in January endorsed this policy statement. The Public Works Committee has not, and probably is unlikely to endorse it. I defer to Kim if she has anything to add, Alder Madden, I mean. And if ultimately what I'd like to do is have the council establish the policy, whether they want to adopt this or not. So that's where we stand.
So let me just try to backtrack here. So what you're asking is for this committee to bypass Public Works and go directly to City Council to provide the policy direction?
I don't know if I would characterize it as bypass, but what I'm saying is the council ultimately is empowered and sets the policy for the city. And if there's conflicting recommendations from committees, then it's up to the council to establish the policy. So I wouldn't characterize it as bypassing a committee. It's every committee has a chance to weigh in.
Okay.
Let's see what else I had in here. I was going to add that there were some photos that I got today. Let's see, where are those here? So these are photos provided by Fitchburg, showing somewhere. I was asking them about the durability of their pavement, and he said that this is the fish hatchery route. So here they actually put in the ladder system, which has faded a little bit over the last 3 years, but that happens with all paint. The reason they did the ladder was something I specifically asked them, was, according to their consultant, to help reduce costs because the green is more expensive. I am trying to get a unit cost estimate from Strand, but I wasn't able to get it for this meeting. So the green is applied in a different manner than standard white paint. I think I had that in the material. Did I not? A reference to how, maybe I didn't. Yeah, I probably didn't actually. Oh, here it is. Green markings are applied with the thermoplastic paint comprised of solid resin pigments and other additives to allow for durability and slip resistance. Markings are heated onto the pavement. I will add that I have a couple colleagues who have expressed the concern that when you have more painted area, that it creates a slippery condition for roadway users, including motorcyclists. So that was some feedback I got from colleagues who happen to use a motorcycle. But Fitchburg said they have not had complaints about that. I specifically asked them that question. That doesn't mean that it's not more slippery. I mean, that makes sense to me that paint can introduce some slipperiness. So the question is, does the visibility, the enhanced profile for these features, does that outweigh the where's the photo I had? Here you go. In my view, it just makes it much more visible for both the motorist and the bicyclist to be aware of conflicts with each other.
Kirsten.
Yeah, so regarding the slipperiness of it, I'm actually now a motorcyclist as well. And during the motorcycle safety test, they discuss paint and different textures quite a bit. So motorcyclists are very aware of it, and it just forces people to go the speed limit or slightly under in wet circumstances. So motorcyclists are tested out on that. But I just have to bring up again, in the last week, I have had to bike out to Pleasant View Golf Course, or the Middleton Bike Park, and Blackhawk Trails. And both times got almost hit, I'm sorry, in 3 different sections around Costco, near the roundabout, in front of Costco, and on Murphy Drive, coming and going both times. Traffic is just getting so much worse, and I feel much safer bike commuting in Madison and in Fitchburg because of the green paint, because it is a visible area. It doesn't actually protect me like a steel box, but you know, it's just another week of almost getting teed. And I do feel that the green paint, especially around businesses, is extremely important that we adopt it.
So the way I put this on the agenda was to see if you had any additional thoughts with respect to the memo from Sean Stowski and the additional information from Madison. I'm not specifically trying to ask you to take a position one way or the other different from what you've done before. That's up to you. But I just wanted to give you the opportunity to review the information provided by Sean Stowski.
As Lisa Mainaro mentioned in a previous meeting, what is it going to take for somebody to die? You know, she had mentioned that more so for raised crosswalks and crosswalks in general, but I think this is another situation. What is it going to take for somebody to get hit and be killed? And then we adopt the green paint. Isn't it better to be proactive?
So I do think I understand Sean's perspective on the general standards approach. However, given that both Madison and Fitchburg are doing this, it's clearly a local standard, which means that local people are going to actually start expecting that. That's long term, that's how national standards work anyway. So with that in mind, I definitely think, I definitely think we continue recommending to the council that we use green paint.
I would add too that I forgot to mention this. The Fitchburg engineer, Tim Volker, commented to me today. I asked him, have they done this anywhere else since the Fish Hatchery Road experience? And he wrote that they reconstructed Lacey Road, which goes across, east-west across central Fitchburg, basically. They reconstructed that in 2023, and they used a solid green pattern when crossing side streets. It was installed at 2 intersections, the Commerce Park Drive and Rock Ridge Road in Fitchburg. So they have continued to, based on their experience with fish hatchery, continue to use it. I also have reached out to Dane County staff because Allen Boulevard, University, and Century are county highways. And I wanted to make sure that they have been comfortable with it. What our engineer says, what Luke says, is he would be more comfortable. He'd like to see the standards approach, as Tad mentioned, but he also is looking for Dane County to sign off on this so that he can point to that and say, look, we had a higher, another government with jurisdiction sign off on this, and so we're not alone in this. So that's why I'm trying to get a statement from Dane County.
Kirsten.
And at what point are we going to say that NATCO will be the guide versus MUTCD? You know, NATCO, all the NATCO cities use green paint.
Brad?
Is there a negative consequence for us? Like, what is the opposite of if we get in trouble, I guess?
Um, you mean if we were to use
If
a,
we do something wrong or that goes against a standard and someone calls us out on it.
in theory, there's a liability risk, as there's often with a lot of things in life. But somebody would basically have to say, it'd have to be shown that there was an incident as a result of the paint that would then, they'd have to find that it was that the city was negligent in some way of allowing a treatment that isn't officially specifically endorsed. I will add, in my view, it's also not explicitly prohibited, but that's the planner speaking, not an attorney or not an engineer. So I think Tad's point that standards evolve, I think that's definitely what's happening here. The green has to, these policies get created by experimentation. And I don't really know, Brad, how else to answer your question other than obviously Madison and Fitchburg and other communities around the country, because I've seen it in other places, have decided that this is consistent with what their objectives are for promoting safety of vulnerable roadway users. So
Okay, so it sounds like the positives way outweigh the negatives, even if we're going slightly against standard. So
I mean that's my personal opinion, but
okay.
it's good people can disagree about this and value principle or value standards in a different way.
Okay.
It's ultimately a policy decision or a political decision.
Yeah.
I will say that one downside is cost. That's a big one. We don't have a good handle yet on what the cost difference is, but this is not equivalent to painting white stripes. I just don't, unfortunately, have that for you right now, but that's ultimately a decision by the council anyway in terms of budget.
Kim?
Yeah, I know we had talked about having a couple of joint meetings between the Public Works and Pedbike Transit Committee. And I've noticed being on Public Works that oftentimes our two committees have are sort of talking past one another and not really interacting the way that I would like them to, which is why I'm really excited to be part of this particular committee. How does the rest of the committee feel about proposing a joint meeting between Public Works and Pedbike Transit, specifically to come up with a policy that both of us can kind of agree on? I think it would have a lot more weight with the council, budget matters aside, if we came together and said, okay, this is what our city engineer and attorney are comfortable with as far as going as close to the standards as we can and try to promote bicycle safety. My personal opinion, I want to paint everything green. Like that's my personal opinion. Again, my personal opinion is not the opinion of our city engineer potentially and our city attorney, who might point to some of the liability issues that Mark is raising. However, I think from a safety perspective and from a regional standard perspective, we should find a way to make this work.
Thea?
Yeah, I mean, I like that idea of meeting with the Public Works Committee. I'm also wondering, I mean, I was very moved by yeah, Kirsten, by your testimony, right? And I feel for you that can't have been fun, right? To have those experiences. So I was wondering, is there a role for other testimonies from other bikers, right? Pedestrians that we could bring to the table as well? Is there, petition, a survey, as well as some of these stories that we can bring to the committee just to put a more human face on the matter?
That's a great idea. Actually, I think a lot of political movement gets spurred on by citizen engagement. And if there is some way that we can bring this to the kind of wider attention, like, hey, we're making this great shared path, it's not just bicycle safety that we're promoting, it's pedestrian safety as well. We are limited by that green paint is only supposed to be for bicycle facilities, which again, why are we prioritizing one kind of safety over another kind of safety? That green paint is just something that's going to be a visual cue to a motorist that, hey, something's up with this intersection and I need to pay more attention. And the more it gets in place in Fitchburg and in Madison in particular, the more, again, that becomes, like Tad was saying, the regional standard, right? And what people expect. So I don't know what a good way would be to get the community involved and maybe behind this a little more. But if there was widespread citizen support for it, that definitely moves the political push button a little bit faster and a little further.
And to just follow up on that and play devil's advocate to my own suggestion, like, is this though an issue where is it because of this standards issue? Is this something that we want to kind of actually like slip in under the radar? Is there a disadvantage to making a big deal about it?
Not sure how to answer that or who you're directing that to, but you're probably just speculating with your committee members.
Yeah, I don't think being sneaky is gonna help us here. This is something where we need to get, ideally, we need to get everybody on our side. That is difficult. It may be nearly impossible, but we still have to at least try. Kirsten.
And if we're looking at going for American League ratings, I think that this would really help us as well, and we can sell it like that. If you look at Minneapolis, who uses green paint everywhere for every path crossing or a raised crossing, they use one of the two, and they have platinum standing. So, you know, how do we want to appear in this nation? Do we want to be seen as a bike ped friendly city, or don't we? And I think if we sell it that way, we may be able to sway some people.
So to answer the question Kim asked, I'm also in favor of making this a focus of a joint meeting with Public Works. How do people feel about that versus pushing for it right now, I guess is what I am asking. Because
I
a
say
joint
we
meeting,
push for it right now.
all right.
Well, and respectfully, as you know, you could take that position and make that recommendation. The council may decide, hey, let's instead have the committees meet jointly. You know, that is something certainly the prerogative of the council.
Right.
So you could punt it to them and say, this is our recommendation, reiterating our recommendation, and then the council could have that discussion and say, well, let's have a joint meeting. I mean, that's their prerogative, and
All right.
no problem with that.
So
I mean, I guess, you know, it's kind of I could certainly leave this meeting and work with the staff person to the Public Works Committee, which is Ben John, our new Public Works Director, and say, hey, we need to schedule a joint meeting. I could just do that if that's the will of this committee formally. But if that's not a formal vote,
right.
I guess, then I wouldn't really have that. I mean, I might think that's a good idea too, or not, but I guess I would rather have a body say we'd like you to do that.
We could also do both things. We could reiterate our recommendation and request a joint meeting with Public Works in order, that could be one of our first joint meetings in order to really hash this out.
I would like both. This is Kirsten.
Okay. So, Mark, for reiterating our opinion, is that a new motion?
No, I mean, I guess based on, maybe it would be helpful to have some forward momentum here. If you wanted to reiterate your position, if that's the will of the committee, you could do that. You could say they've reviewed the additional information and are still comfortable with your recommendation. That could be one way. Or
Right.
the counterpoint to that, the other motion approach would be to say, well, let's have that joint meeting instead before we adopt a position. I guess those would be my two suggestions. So a motion to get you out of this, so that there's some direction here and the committee is on record. I guess that those would be two possible motions that would help you get out of this, to have some momentum.
Right. Okay, and it sounds like you're saying our request to you to schedule the joint meeting is also a motion?
Yeah, I mean, I think those
Okay.
are the two approaches. One is to reiterate to the council your position that you previously took in light of the information you got, and the second is let's instead have a joint meeting before we take another position. I guess that would be my suggestion. Choose one of those and have a vote.
Choose one
Well,
rather than do both.
I guess you could, I don't see what doing both. Well, you could reiterate your position and say we still want to, fine. If you want to do that, that's fine too. Those are three options.
Okay.
Quick clarifying question. When
Yeah.
we reiterate our position to the council, is it resending one of these memos? What does that exactly look like?
Well, I mean, this was the motion you adopted in March and,
Right.
I'm sorry, January. And, so I guess, I don't know how to answer your question. I guess you would just reiterate this motion, or you could just say the council, if for those of you that favor going straight to the council, I guess you could do that. Or introduce the idea of the joint meeting, or do both, like you said.
I guess.
Oh, go ahead.
No, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, I will add that there are a couple there's the hope that we will be done by 8 o'clock tonight. I just wanted to add that.
Oh.
And it's not just my hope, but there's been a
Yeah.
couple of people who've made that comment. So
Yeah, understood. So I guess clarifying, would this be better as two motions or one? We don't know.
no, it's clear to me. I just am not trying to. You guys have to decide if you want to have a joint meeting or if you want to go straight to the council or if you want to do both. Just someone make a motion and then have a vote. I guess that's what I'm suggesting.
All right. Okay.
Not taking any action is an option too, and then I don't know what to do next. That's what the result of that is.
Okay, with that in mind, I'm going to move that we restate our recommendation to the Common Council to establish the policy to use green colored pavement in the following circumstances. And we are requesting a joint meeting to be scheduled with the Public Works Committee to further discuss this policy. How does that sound to people?
I will second that.
All right.
Was that Brad?
That was Brad.
That was Brad,
yeah.
sorry.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? All right, the ayes have it.
There you go. Thank you.
All right, so item number 3, potential change order for path crossing.
I do not have a change order for you. When I
Okay.
put this agenda together, I was hoping that I would have made more progress with and gotten more responses on this topic from colleagues and from our consultant, Strand. Strand is in the process of getting us a cost opinion. So I would recommend at this point, you could just postpone this item
All right.
and anticipate more information at the next meeting. There is time to we don't have to act on this tonight. It's just because the project hasn't even started. So there's time to take this up in June.
All right. Then let's go ahead and postpone that. Item number 4, active transportation plan.
I'm going to turn this over to my esteemed colleague, Scott. And Scott, I will help. You can, let's see, you can share now. Assuming you wanted to share your screen.
Yes. All right. Nope, that's not the one I wanted to share. So everybody, just can everybody see the first
Yep.
slide of the presentation?
Yep.
Great. So yes, Mark mentioned, I am the new placemaking planner here for the city of Middleton. As a little bit of background on myself, prior to this job, I worked as a consultant for a planning firm, so I just couldn't resist the urge to put together a nice little PowerPoint. We are underway on the active transportation plan. Early on in my time here, this was identified as one of the projects that we want to get moving forward, especially getting as much of Mark's institutional knowledge down on paper as we can before he retires in June. So as a bit of background overall, the active transportation plan is meant to implement the comprehensive plan, goals, strategies, and actions. The comp plan did specifically mention the creation of an active transportation plan. This would update and replace a 2009 bike and ped plan that was created that is out of date and really needs to have a new look. On a more kind of an internal looking focus, this is an area that I've noticed it really goes across a lot of different city departments. The trails go through the conservancies, public works deals with the public right of way, planning is involved with a lot of different facets, overarching all of that. And so we want to make sure that we're utilizing that expertise and working with our regional partners to really incorporate these as just standard procedure in projects that are happening throughout the city. One of the nice things about doing a plan like this in-house versus going out and hiring somebody to do it is we have a lot more opportunity to have those deeper conversations, spend time as staff just really talking through what the best processes are, especially now with a bit of turnover in public works and planning. It seems like a very appropriate time to me for that. One thing I forgot to mention up front that I'm realizing is I put together this just general outline for what this plan should look like, what the process should be. And my hope today from all of you is to get some feedback on, is this in the right direction? Are there certain pieces you're really excited to dive deeper on? Or are there certain pieces that you think are a little bit less important? Or if there are things that are missing overall? So just as a little bit of context for the goal of what I'm hoping to get out of this today. I want to make sure I'm maximizing all of your time by providing it in pieces to be able to review and approve. So we can have a little bit more detailed conversation, discussion on different aspects of the plan. I want to utilize all of your expertise. I'll go over some of the ways I think that can happen in a couple slides. And ultimately, we want a final deliverable that's a full plan, but I think something like this, there's a lot of individual pieces that can work on their own. So, maybe there's a chapter that Public Works references all the time for various standards. Maybe a lot of the GIS updates that we can do can get incorporated into our planning processes. I'm trying to keep a very keen eye towards, I don't want this just to live as a document that lives on the website. but to really be a useful tool for everybody at the city. In broad strokes, this month I'm hoping to, thus far I've had a chance to talk informally with a lot of different folks at the city and other partners, but want to have a more formal conversations and set out what goals and hopes that those folks have as part of this planning process. Between now and August, we'll start getting a lot of information prepared for you all to review, and the hope is by September, potentially earlier, we can have some work sessions as a committee to, and apologies about the light. City Hall has lights on a timer, so if I don't move around too much, it just turns off behind me. Have those work sessions, and then the hope is to have it ready for different committees to provide feedback throughout January, February, and hopefully final adoption sometime in March. As we get into it, we might need to move time up or backwards. This is all just in draft form right now, but wanted to give you all a sense of what the expectations could be. The first major piece of the puzzle, we currently have a pedestrian sidewalk gap map. So we know the spots in the city that there are gaps. We'd like to look over that, make sure it's updated, potentially remove sections that just aren't feasible. Mark pointed out that some sections along the lakes, just the topography doesn't make sense, or it's just going to be way too hilly for a sidewalk to ever be realistic. So we want to identify which ones are actually in the plan to close the gap someday, and which ones are priority to get fixed over time. The bicycle map, rechecking what the proposed routes are, how things have changed since the last time we've looked at this, and getting that updated, and the transit map as well. My hope with these is to have a fun in-person meeting with the committee here. We'll get off some big printed maps. We can sit around with, markers and everything, and mark them up and actually really get into the weeds on it. I think in addition to figuring out the full network, that would be a great opportunity for everybody to talk about what are the problem areas in the city. I think that'll be a great exercise for us to really quickly synthesize a lot of your expertise on how things function right now in the city and where things need to improve. In Sun Prairie's active transportation plan, they have a chapter that has a lot of different types of facilities. This is just a quick snapshot of a couple of those where it gives, the types of places where those are appropriate and a description of what the type of facility is. So, through this plan, we would hope to collaborate with Public Works to say, we want to do raised crossings. Here's the scenarios where it makes sense for a raised crossing, trying to get that on a more standards basis while leaving enough flexibility for specific situations that might arise. I think this is particularly important for everybody. I know a lot of housing developers really crave certainty in decision making, and so this will be one way that potentially share this up front with them so they can know this is what the city's policies are on the different infrastructure types that we expect to see in newer areas. This picture here is some of the survey results from the initial public survey that got sent out in September. We're still in the process of synthesizing all of those, but here's a sneak preview of some of the hotspots of where we've noticed a lot of comments originating. We would like to use this and other ways to really pinpoint what are the high conflict intersections, what are spots in the city that are desperately in need of some ADA upgrades, and also what are the gaps in our walkability throughout the city. Also, beyond just the survey responses, we want to look at other available data sources. And long-term, would love to establish a process where we can regularly receive this type of feedback from the public so that as new projects are happening, we have a database of over the past 5 years, here are the exact spots that folks felt like there was an issue, and we can, just page through those and, double check. It's a big city, and, want to make sure that the small things don't get missed. A lot of active transportation plans talk about the educational initiatives that are happening. We want to make sure we're talking through those, reviewing what we're currently doing, what other communities are doing, and what we would like to prioritize, and which things maybe are less of a priority going forward. And then I believe this is last, or second to last, finding ways to promote the network, especially to folks that are less frequent users. This picture here is Visit Middleton has a trail system map. I would like to, in addition to something like this, potentially develop, here are the 2 or 3 premier routes through Middleton. So if you're a visitor to the hotel, you know, oh, if I want to bike, here's the route I should take. You know, the folks on the Ped Bike Transit Committee have given it their ringing endorsement. Or, you know, one thing in particular is, you know, from our downtown, it's really easy to reach Stricker Pond and Tiedemann Pond. You know, maybe establishing that as a bit more of a walking loop of one of the premier walking routes in the city. Ideas like that, you know, ways that we can promote it to folks that aren't paying as much attention to the blow to blow, or they see a big map like this and their eyes just get wide and they don't know what to do with it. And of course, we want to make sure that we're finding ways to fund the network. We want to identify the best funding sources, grants or other programs that would be available, and make sure that as we're planning expansions of the network, that we're identifying ways that we can make sure that it gets maintained over time. Because as you all know, the maintenance of path is just as important as getting it built. And now I promise this is the last one, because we're going to try to get done by 8 today. But I've always found it useful when all the different policies related to a topic are compiled into one, you know, easy area with a nice summary of them, clickable links and all that. So as part of this, we would have an appendix that compiles all of the City of Middleton policies, whether it's the complete streets policy, the transportation chapter of our comp plan. Our zoning code has a lot of different points. This one points out the bicycle minimum parking, which is very cool provision. Not every community has a bike minimum parking requirements. That's a big testament to the folks have been working at this for a long time here. And we want to make sure that's being refreshed annually, so that folks that want to quickly get up to speed with the city's policies on these topics can, it's all in one spot and you can find it. You don't have to go digging around too much. And with that, I'll quit talking. The main goal of this, I don't think, is a particular motion, but I would love to get some feedback, you know, initial thoughts, ideas that this spurs of where you would like to see the direction of this plan go before we get too far in drafting it.
Kirsten.
Yeah, I really like the idea of us getting together and looking at the maps, but I would like to see it even a little bit broader, something like what the county did with County Road M and the planning stage, and open it up to the community for them to, maybe if we had 2 open meetings or even 1, where people could come in and look at the maps and pin it and say their biggest concerns and express it to us versus us just deciding.
That's a great point. Thank you.
Actually, kind of building on that, it would be nice to have, and I'm sure they'd just be utterly enthusiastic to have a bunch of straight-laced button-up adults come in, but it would be nice to have a meeting like that at the high school and a meeting like that at Cromery with students. One thing I have noticed living on the corner of both the Conservancy and Century, in the past few years, there seemed to be, and I'm sure my observations here are flawless and unbiased, but there seemed to be an increase in the number of independent younger people in Middleton, which I cannot express how, as a grown-up stuck in the suburbs millennial, I cannot express how much better that seems. So as up and coming members of the public and as current members of the public whose voices are often ignored, it would be nice to actually talk to them and get feedback on this.
Tad, a lot of the growth that you've seen is the NICA, the mountain bike team. And so you're gonna see a ton more kids on mountain bikes. I can't remember. I think that we have like 75 kids in Middleton on the NICA team. So absolutely opening it up and inviting them, because they are biking to the Middleton Bike Park and Black Hawk Trails from the city.
I think that's a fabulous idea.
If I may, I've found that having a community meeting in the Cromery Cafetorium is a fabulous place for a meeting because it's such a beautiful place. It's centrally located in the community. It's right along the trail network. And there's bicycle parking outside. So I would recommend that as a forum for a community event. If you wanted to have a separate forum oriented towards kids, I mean, you could either invite them to that or find other creative ways to reach out to students.
Right, yeah, and just building off the comments so far, I love the idea of working through the clubs, whether it's the mountain biking club or I know at my high school, cross-country runners knew the city streets better than anybody. So getting a lot of them involved would be really awesome. So thank you for pointing out those ideas.
Kim.
Yeah, I love maps. I'm kind of a map nerd a little bit. Not that I follow them very well, but I like to, I love the idea of actually getting together with a team with some markers and really digging into the places that we think are more, and be able to prioritize. Like, I think priorities is always kind of where I'm thinking, what are we going to do? I like the idea too of having a map in the hotels around town, like, because we don't have a trolley anymore like we used to, and there's a lot of things from the hotel systems that are walkable, right, or bicyclable. But the issue, I guess, with that is that most people who are traveling don't travel with their bikes, which is unfortunate. And this might be a little bit off topic, but do we know, has anyone approached the tourism department about getting a B-cycle around some of those places in Middleton?
Oh boy, you're asking a question that's got some history, right, Tad?
Oh,
So
we
I think that
we
I
can
think
table that for another time.
no, well, there's been several efforts over the last, I'll say 10 years to get B-cycle stations in Middleton. I'll just say that there's been reluctance by tourism staff, tourism commission staff, to use tourism dollars to help fund the installation and or maintenance of the stations.
Mm.
That's been the central issue. It's, I think, something that is the active transportation plan. Let's just start calling it the ATP for short. But I think that's a logical outgrowth of that planning process to have that be a recommendation. I hope that it is one of the big recommendations coming out, because as we talked earlier under the policy discussion about green paint, we have kind of a regional standard, we have a culture in this region for being bicycle friendly, or at least trying to become more bicycle and pedestrian friendly. And this would certainly be in line with that. Monona and Fitchburg have B-cycle stations along with Madison and the UW campus. So we're all part of the same region. So that's a short history. We've even identified potential station locations. Like we really have put some thought into it.
Okay, well, maybe something grows out of that. I'll keep that in the back of my mind. So thank you for that history.
You're welcome.
This is also somewhat tangential, and Scott, you're welcome to bring us back, but what Kim was just saying about working with the tourism agency and what Kirsten was saying earlier about the green paint being almost, it being a way to signal, right, that we have these values and we are a place to be. It really calls to mind almost like a branding campaign, right? That, it's come to Middleton, it's a beautiful place to be. We're an active community. We're a safe community. There seems to be some sort of like yes, it's the safety element that's first and foremost, but there also is a little bit of like I don't know, it just seems like there's a branding something or other to lean into, potentially in partnership with the tourist agency. To make an even more explicit point, the green paint. I actually think green paint is very, very attractive, right? So again, it's not just safe, but it's very attractive. It signals like a put togetherness. And so these were just some thoughts rattling around in my mind.
Kirsten?
I apologize, there might be a phone ringing here, but yeah, and with that being said, could we do a missions statement or a vision statement for the opening of the ATP?
We discussed that last year, and we have, I did some initial work on this last year, and then we postponed action because there was a regional effort afoot potentially, and it was just balancing workload issues. So we can dust that off, but Scott's aware of that, and we can revisit that. I think that's a good idea. Well, thank you for your feedback on this. I think, Scott, what you're hearing is from, I know these committee members pretty well. Usually if there's not too many comments that they're basically in agreement. So, but what you're getting this time is several people commenting with enthusiasm. So that's a really good sign. I think everybody here is on board with that mission of preparing this plan. So I think there's a lot of excitement. It's just been waiting for someone like you to focus on it. So I appreciate that you're going to run with this.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll make sure to keep Opitz as involved as possibly can. Although he
I don't
might
have
be on a
opinions.
beach with a pina colada or something. But yeah, those are all awesome comments, and we'll incorporate those as best we can into the process.
All right. If there are no further questions or
Just a note of
comments.
my coworker that the city is not going to fund you to find me somewhere on a beach, just so you know. It's also not likely where I'd be. I'd be more on a slope than anything else.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go back to the agenda. If you're done sharing your screen, Scott, I'll take it back.
I'll stop share.
All right. Item number 5, committee meeting schedule.
So I neglected to mention earlier that you actually have 2 additional new members aside from Alder Madden. The council on this past Tuesday approved a new student representative named Maddie Decapiter. I don't know how to say her name. And then also we have another new citizen representative, and I'm just Keaton Leppanen, Leppanen. Neither of them could be present tonight on short notice following their confirmation. So, and technically their terms don't start till June anyway, but I did invite them to come, but they just couldn't come on short notice. So the reason this is on the agenda is because it's a good time whenever there's new committee members to see if this is the best time for the group to meet. I will say that Thursdays, going forward, there tends to be meeting conflicts with other city committees on the 2nd and 3rd Thursdays. This group has been meeting by Zoom traditionally, which is another topic you could discuss, whether you want to continue that. There's generally been consensus that that's a good way to go. But the first Thursday works well from a city meeting standpoint, city meeting schedule standpoint. Whoever ends up being the staff person to this committee, I suspect it's likely to be great Scott. But we will find out. But if you have opinions on this, it would be, and also time of day, 5 o'clock might be too early for some. 7 might be too late. So this is your chance to provide some input.
I favor first Thursdays continuing just because that's what we've been doing, so it's convenient to keep it the same. Timing, I'm still flexible, but pushing it back is fine. Steve?
Yeah, I'm fine on terms of the days, and I'm flexible as well. My only suggestion, maybe because I'm a little more old school. I understand doing Zoom meetings and that's fine, but I've thought to myself, it would be nice to have one in person, maybe after the new members are added, just because I certainly do better, I think, when I know people and and I have a chance to kind of see them face to face. So for me, this is a little more like Hollywood Square, so it's a little more awkward. So maybe one meeting a year we could have a face to face. That would be my recommendation anyway.
Kirsten?
Yeah, I like the first Thursday at 5 or 5:30. I'm a 4 a.m. riser, so the later meetings are tough, but virtual for the most part, except for maybe one a year, just because I do have a lot of clients who are immunosuppressed. So the more I expose myself to everybody else, the more I'm exposing them. I'm fine wearing a mask a couple times a year, but would prefer not every month.
Thea?
Yeah, I'm fine. I like the first Thursdays. I am gonna be on a plane for many of the next first Thursdays, but in general, aside from the summer, it works well for me. I can make 5 work. I think I have a slight preference for 5:30, or 6, but I can make 5 work if that's better. And then I too, Scott, have been just liking the idea of meeting folks in person. Definitely doesn't need to be monthly. I would be in favor of maybe quarterly in-person meetings, but or annually is fine too. But I like the idea of meeting folks in person at least once.
Kim?
Yes, I also first Thursdays work fine for me. I like the idea of meeting in person quarterly just because I feel like the discussion is a little more organic in person, and it's nice to see, people around. But I understand from a convenience standpoint that that's a little rough. 5 o'clock is a terrible time for me. 6 or 6:30 would be far preferable. Even 6 o'clock, I would have to change my patient schedule around, which is not that big of a deal going forward, as long as I know that that's the case. But 5 or 5:30 would be a heavy lift for me. So I would prefer 6 or 6:30.
I think the only person we didn't hear from was Brad.
I
know,
have
curious.
no preference whatsoever.
Okay.
If we want to meet at 3 in the morning on Sundays, I'm good with it. So
Just as long as it's not in person at that point.
correct.
And I'll weigh in too, and I'll say that I really have no preference either. So
That's good to know.
you'll still see me every once in a while when I'm going to be nosy. All right. Well, I will ask the other 2 members as well
right.
what their preference is. And then also we don't have with us today the school district representative, Dale Rhodes. So I will ask him. I think he tends to prefer earlier, but I will check with him. He's missed a couple of our meetings, so maybe there's a schedule conflict for him. So I'll follow up on that. Thank you. That was helpful. Moving on. Can we move on, Ted?
We
Sorry.
can move on.
Okay.
Staff updates.
So Bike Week 2025, lots of good things are coming together. We are especially focused on let me look at your notes from last time. There was a nice list here. So this community bike ride idea is going to become reality on Sunday, June 1st at 3 p.m. And Scott, if you'd like, I mean, I'm happy to talk about it, but you are sort of leading the effort now. I invited Metro Transit to provide a BRT bus, and they've said yes. So you want to run with what else is planned, Scott?
Yeah, so we're gonna have the great Mark Opitz leading the bike leading the community bike ride, starting at 3, going to about 4. The BRT bus will be parked near Stonehorse Green at 4, between 4 to 5, where there will be some demonstrations for folks to load the bikes on and off the bus, which uh, I was staffing the Sip and Stroll event, and there was a woman I was talking to who heard about the event and got so absolutely excited about having that opportunity to be able to, try it out, because when the bus is actually moving around, you have a hard, you know, you feel a little bit more self-conscious or pressure. So it's a good, uh, easy way for folks to get to learn that. Uh, and yeah, Mark, I think that's the biggest things for the
Yeah,
community
and
bike
we're
ride.
also talking about reaching out to, I talked to one business already, but maybe have a version of the bike benefits program for the one day. Bike benefits being where you get a sticker on your helmet and you get a discount at participating businesses. But what I was thinking is um, having local businesses around Stonehorse Green, whoever wants to participate, offering some sort of a incentive or a discount ordering from them if you come in wearing a helmet or something like that. And I know Kirsten has been actively reaching out to businesses for Bike Week. And I think she has something to say with that.
Yeah, Kirsten.
Yeah, I have Breeks, Long Table and Chocolate Shop all on board for discounts during that week. Only Chocolate Shop has given me the exact details, but all 3 will be offering discounts, so.
You had me at Long Table Breaks and Chocolate Shop. So it's going to be a great event. Last year we only had about 10 or 12 participants. I'm hoping we have over 50. I think with the enthusiasm, especially having the BRT there, having Scott, our placemaking planner, and his energy and social media prowess, I think will and connections with the downtown business community. I think that's going to really help. We just need to have good weather. So let's hope we have a day like tonight. The rest of the week we have a Tuesday and I'm sorry, Thea did you have some more comments on that?
One super quick question. Can you say more about the route? I'm just debating where to
Oh,
transport the kids.
I think we'll do something similar to last year. It's really basically meant to be an hour and 10 minutes or so. Slow pace, no drop ride, stopping at a few locations to discuss future plans. Last year's route was basically um, north on Parmenter, into the Parmenter quarter, and then back over towards Costco to look at that situation that Kirsten talked about. And I was the guinea pig last year to demonstrate the hazard of the Costco driveway. So, well, I think we'd do something similar to that again. It definitely is something that, especially on a Sunday afternoon, I think that families are very welcome to participate. And we're not planning to, cross. Well, I think last year we did cross Highway 14, so maybe I would, we'll play it by ear based on writing ability. But
I don't think we had little kids last year, so we were like, yeah, let's
right.
cross 14.
Yeah. So, I mean, the idea is to show people not just the good things about Middleton's bicycle network, but the challenges and the things we still need to address. So it's meant to be a learning experience, but do it that in a safe way.
Thank you.
Yep. Would love to have you join us, and everyone would be encouraged to invite friends and really try and let's make this a big party. Actually, we're rebranding this essentially as Bike Week Kickoff, Middleton's Bike Week Kickoff. So the community bike ride and the BRT, we're getting I'm lining up someone to have bus passes, hopefully for distribution. So we're really also we're talking about connecting with some recycling promotion of our recycling or the compost kiosk that's going to be going in downtown Middleton by the skateboard park. So this is going to be a fun community event, much better organized or much larger, more synergy with other initiatives compared with last year. Then Tuesday and Thursday, we have bike commuter stations like we did in the past on corner of Stonefield and Old Middleton Road. Mead and Hunt and HDA, both local consulting firms based in Middleton here, have offered to sponsor the stations again this year. I was thinking we don't need to do one station every day of the week. So we'll just focus on those two. Captain Bree is doing their bike rides as they always do on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Wednesdays is an e-bike ride, and Tuesdays and Thursdays are, just for their bike club, and it's easy for people to tag along on that. And then on Saturday is a bike rodeo organized with our police department, and that's going to be at now I'm going to forget if it's Elm Lawn or no, I think it's at St. Bernard's, I think, at the church. So those are the activities we have so far. There was some interest, and Brad, I know you expressed willingness to help with a scavenger hunt. I have not worked on that yet. And I don't know if Scott, I don't think that's anything you're working on at this point yet either. So if that's something that we want to do, then we'll need to get going with that here in the next few days. So that's what I have for that. Anybody have any other thoughts, any ideas from last time?
Mark, are we allowed to, on the community bike ride, discuss the potential for green paint at crossings and maybe talk about where it would go and ask for input?
Yeah, well, we'll notice it so that there's a potential quorum. We can, it'd be appropriate to do that. I'll make sure the quorum notice, let me write that down so I don't forget. List potential topics that we talk about. It's kind of implied with that effort. Okay.
All right. And I believe you have an awesome update for us.
Yeah, just a second here. I'm gotta find it now. I had it ready and now I lost the email. It is right here. Look at that. So do you see that? I picked these up yesterday from the Madison Traffic Engineering Sign Shop. Kirsten, you'll be pleased to know that there's not one, not two, but 10 of the path crossing signs. They were about only $40. Actually, I think those were $40. No, I'm sorry. Those might have been even less. They were nominally, it wasn't expensive. Yeah, they were $40 each. And these North Mendota signs, this is just a representative. There's others underneath it, but we're going to have these in strategic locations along the North Mendota path, which is between Branch Street and the eastern city limits. So I'm happy that those will be installed hopefully in the next 3 weeks or so or month. It's up to the street and parks crew to allocate resources, and they're very busy in the spring. So I also have identified 10 locations for the path crossing signs. So I'm delighted to report that. And here's a little sneak peek. Where did I put that? Here it is. I decided while I was at it, leaving my office when I depart. Hopefully this will show on the screen. It's not going to show because of my darn background. How did I turn that off quickly? Adjust my background. How do I turn that off? Scott, help me. I hear none. There we go. So I had this made as well. So we're going to put for our Cayuga Path project that's going in this summer. When that thing is done, those signs are going up too. And also we have really happy about this one. Oops. You see that? Is it blurry? So path etiquette signs for the Cayuga Path. I cannot speak for any colleagues who manage the trail system, but as the current project manager for Cayuga Path, they can go in on the Cayuga Path. That is my parting gift to the city. So hopefully that will generate a conversation about whether those are helpful or not. And if they are, then maybe we'll make more of them, but that's not my decision to make. So I thought I would that's my update. It's a show and tell.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see, here we are. That's all I have.
All right. So, remember, if you have any future events or agenda items, email Mark, and then he will email whoever actually needs to get those.
Yep.
Mark,
We'll-
I did come up with a fun event you could do on occasion in the future. Ride with a retiree. Just, think about it.
We will probably meet again based on your feedback the first Thursday of June. I will still be employed unless I've decided to leave early. So that will be the night before my last day. So why don't you plan on June 5th meeting I'm guessing it won't be before 6 at this point based on feedback I've gotten, but Kirsten, you can make 6 or possibly 6:30 work, but you prefer 6. So we'll discuss that amongst yourselves here, but and I'll poll the other members, but at least at this point, plan on June 6th, and hopefully Thea's not on a plane at that moment.
All right.
I didn't hear you, Thea.
I am, unfortunately, I land late on Thursday, so I apologize and I will miss that, but happy
Okay.
Mark, thanks for your leadership.
Oh, my pleasure. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
All right. That's our agenda. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for letting me sit in. Have a good night.
Okay, take care.